friends. How are you today or this evening, this morning as I'm seeing? So I know it's evening for Stephanie. Looks like Roy, morning time in New Zealand, and probably everything in between for everybody else. Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? I'm so excited to be here, by the way.
I am also doing very well and so excited to have you. I think this is the first uh, fashion specific Teachable Discover event that I've been able to host, and I'm very excited about it because I love I love learning about fashion and especially the sustainable elements, which I know you are a big teacher of, and I'm really excited to learn from you today. Um, while we are getting started, while folks are kind of joining the stream, I would love to know from you all at home, can you hear us and see us okay? And where are you tuning in from? I know we've already got, looks like we've got a few folks from New Zealand, which is very cool. I saw some UK, I believe I saw a French flag on the comments there. Let us know where in the world you are. Stephanie, I know, is in Jakarta.
Yes.
Uh, yeah. Uh, and en route on your way home. You're based in Bali, though, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Bali and I'm quarantining in Jakarta. So it's 5 a.m. here, but I'm up. I'm excited. I got my green tea and my coffee and everything. I'm ready to go. So,
Excellent.
hi, everyone.
Well, throughout the session, feel free to take pauses to caffeinate because it's 5 a.m. is an early wake up call, so we're extra excited for you to be joining us today. Looks like we have folks from Singapore and exotic New Jersey, which is where I'm from originally. Canada. Okay, thank you all so much for letting us know that you can hear us and see us. That's great to know because we've got some terrific wisdom coming your way from our guest today. I couldn't be happier to introduce you all to Stephanie Srikandi, who is um, basically like a cradle fashionista, someone who has been interested in fashion from a very early age. And in addition to exploring fashion design, has spent a lot of her time recently um, building brands and helping others build fashion brands that are representative of what they're interested in and their identities and themselves, but also sustainable. And that's a little bit about that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm really excited to get some insights from you, Stephanie, on your experience and how you go about kind of this mission that you have in the world to keep fashion sustainable. Um, so just a few, before I turn it over to Stephanie, I want to give a few housekeeping notes to our audience. There will be a replay available of this session. So for those of you who will come in late in a bit, don't fret. Those of you who are here, if you miss anything, we will make sure that you have access to replay this stream. We'll send you an email with that, and we'll also post it on the YouTube page, which in addition has the link to Stephanie's full course. So today we're going to get a tidbit, right? A little bit of what we can squeeze into about an hour's worth of time. But there's so much more to learn and to start practicing as you're building out your fashion brand. So Stephanie's course is linked it's pinned to the top of the YouTube page that you're watching on now. So definitely check that out. I'll also be dropping links into the comments periodically, and I'll be I'll pop off screen for a little bit, but I'll be here and with you all in the comments the whole time. So if you have questions or if there's anything that you want to have Stephanie comment on or share her experiences about, then by all means let us know in the chat, and I'll make sure that we discuss that. Looks like I've got lots more folks coming in from Mexico and Canada, and knitting a scarf from Canadian sourced alpaca while you watch. Sarah, that is a great way to be to be multitasking in a relevant way.
Yeah, I love that.
So thank you all for being here today. Stephanie, most especially thank you. I will turn it over to you so we can get started.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be doing this on Teachable Discover, especially since it is my first live training. So, hello, everyone. It's so cool to see you guys here in this live training from all over the world. So, welcome to the How to Start and Scale a Sustainable Fashion Brand. So, before we get started, I just want you guys to get comfy, grab your pen, grab a paper, make sure that you're fully focused, turn off your phone, turn off all the notifications, because in the next 60 minutes, we're going to cover a lot of ground, and I want you to make full use of the time that we have together. So, if you guys are ready, let's first talk about what we're going to be covering in this training so you know what you're going to be learning and what your takeaways will be. So we're going to be talking about the goal of a sustainable fashion brand, and we're going to be defining your goal. We're going to talk about how to develop a sustainable brand story, which I find really important. And then I know you guys are excited as well to learn about how to source sustainable fabrics and trims. And then we're going to also end it with a sustainability assessment, as well as a little surprise and a live Q&A at the end. And like what Ashley said, I'm also going to be chatting a little bit about the program. So I just want to give you guys a heads up as well that I will be doing that. So I'm really excited, even though it's really early in the morning here in Jakarta, but I am so ready, and I hope you guys are as well. So first, I want to know what brought you guys here. So when I know this, I can tailor this training for you. So maybe you're here because you want to have a sustainable fashion brand that is successful and profitable, or you already have a fashion brand, but maybe it's not sustainable yet, and you want to make it sustainable, but you don't know where to begin. And that's completely fine. We got you covered. Or maybe you're number three, you're just entrepreneurially curious about sustainable fashion and you want to learn more. So let me know, guys, what brought you here? Type 1, 2, or 3. Let me know in the chat box because I want to get to know you, and I want to know how I can serve you during this training. So let me know if you're 1, if you're 2, if you're 3. You guys are all welcome here, and I'm really glad that we're all here from all over the world, from Mexico, New Zealand, Brisbane, Philippines. Like, this is really cool. I'm really loving this space that we're holding together. So I see 2. Helena says 1. Vanessa says 1 and 3. That's really cool. I like that. Joanna says 1. Sarah says 1. Stacy says 3. So yeah, welcome, guys. So now that I know a little bit about you, maybe you guys are like, well, who are you? Who is Stephanie? Who is she? So first of all, I'll introduce myself because I don't know if you guys know me. I don't know if you guys have followed me on Instagram. I do see some of my students in here, so hi to my students. But if you don't know me and you don't follow me on Instagram, I'll take you back to where it began. So I was actually born in Jakarta, where I'm quarantining right now. I'm half Dutch, half Indonesian. And I actually live in Bali right now. But before I lived in Bali, I was born here in Jakarta. I went to school here. I'm Dutch Indonesian, so I went to a Dutch elementary school, then went to an American middle school and high school. Hence, I have an American accent. But all throughout my childhood, I had this thing for fashion. I just loved it. I was flipping through the magazines my mom always brought home. Like back then it was Cosmopolitan, Vogue. You know, there wasn't really much, but the magazines and fashion TV. I don't know if you guys remember fashion TV. So I've always loved fashion. And when there were shows in my school and it was like the lip syncing shows and you could lip sync Madonna or Spice Girls, I would always sign myself up. And then I would actually design the costume and like go to the tailor and like have her make it. But I soon discovered that I wasn't really into being a fashion designer. So in high school, when I was graduating, I was looking for what to do next, what, major I would be doing in college, and I discovered fashion business. So yes, this is me. On the left side is me actually in a beach cleanup in Bali during my team beach cleanup that we do every month. And on the right side, that's also me when I was living in LA for 5 years working on my brand. This is a love song, but this is little me. Little me wanted to become a DJ, but no. So I was interested always interested in fashion. So, like I said, um, when I was going to college, I discovered fashion business, and I was like, hold on, maybe I'll just do this because I want to have my fashion brand and I want to learn about the business side of things. And maybe then after that, I will learn fashion design if I need to. So I was really pumped to go to fashion business school, thinking that it would help me. But in school, I realized it was teaching me the practical stuff. It wasn't teaching me how to become an entrepreneur and run a day-to-day business. That's a whole different challenge. And I'm not saying fashion business school didn't help, but it doesn't teach the entrepreneurial real life stuff. So anyway, after college, I thought that I could start my brand, but I realized I don't have enough money. I'm not confident yet. So then I moved to Bali and I got a job. And the job that I got was a visual merchandiser for a Italian brand that actually is still around in Bali now. And I love my first boss. Um, but I remember when I was there, my first week, I just hated it. I was like, I don't want to work this 9 to 5. I don't want to work on somebody else's dream. But I kind of had to because I didn't have the money to start my own line. So that was my goal. My goal was to stay in that job, save up enough money. As a visual merchandiser, I had to change the mannequins. I had to think about the store displays and do all of that. And yes, fashion business school did teach me how to do that, but it wasn't my passion. So anyway, fast forward a year later, I ended up having a little bit of savings and I didn't start my clothing line yet. No, I started a jewelry line called Rebirth. And I'm really glad for Rebirth. It's not around anymore now, but it really taught me how to have my own brand and my own business. It taught me how to manage my finances, run production, wear a million and different hats. So I discovered though that the jewelry business that I was in, because it was a little bit on the higher end side, I was making silver pieces. I couldn't really scale it. And in the meantime, I was also kind of dabbling in making my own clothes because back then in Bali, we didn't have any cool brands, especially I was in my early 20s. So I was like, I'll just make stuff. And I was making just casual t-shirts, things that I could wear every day. And my friends were like, oh, that's cute. That's cute. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should do something about this. So then I found a little storefront because I had some funds from my jewelry line. I opened this little boutique, called it This Is a Love Song. And then basically the rest was history. And This Is a Love Song is my sustainable fashion brand. And it really took off that at one point I had to basically kind of decide, I was running this jewelry line and my clothing line. I couldn't do both. So I ended up dropping Rebirth and that was that. But in return, I had my fashion brand. And now I also have my ethical manufacturing company because I realized as I was having my fashion brand, I became really, really passionate about sustainable and ethical fashion, even before all of these terms are being thrown around in the internet. I always knew that my brand needed to do something good. So this is actually my brand. Keep fashion sustainable. And I know that's why you guys are here. So before we jump in, if you don't know my brand, some cool things have happened. So that is Rihanna wearing a jacket that I designed, and she was running out of a studio in New York. And I remember one morning I was like still asleep, and my roommate was knocking on the door. She's like, "Oh my God, Rihanna's following you." And until now, I still check every now and then. I'm like, does she still follow? So that was like kind of one of the pinnacle moments of, you know, having my brand, This Is a Love Song, and having someone like Rihanna just coming out of the studio wearing my design. And since then, a few more familiar faces have also worn my brand, such as Kylie Jenner. In the middle is Miley Cyrus sitting on a toilet in Soho House with like a print that I designed. So that was pretty wild. Another wild thing that happened was that we got this billboard, which was on the way to Coachella. I don't know if you guys have heard about this festival, which is a huge festival. And we had a collaboration with Karuchi, and we basically got this billboard, which was really cool because I really loved going to Coachella for years and did a lot of events there for my brand. So that was another one of my highlights. But of course, to me, the coolest thing about my fashion brand and my fashion business is working with the makers every day through my ethical manufacturing company. You know, I've been able to create a sustainable fashion brand that's not just sustainable for the planet, but also for the people that are working in it. You know, so this is my team and I work with them every day. I'm so proud of them. Like without them, I don't have This Is a Love Song. I don't have Tile Studio. And that was always my mission, was to be able to create a brand that can give back, that can create a safe working environment, that can give them fair wages, compensation, health insurance. You know, I want to take care of my people. And the reason for this was when I first started This Is a Love Song, I didn't have my studio. So I was working with manufacturers in Bali. And I saw that they were just not being treated right. I kept hearing things in their factory of the workers not being paid on time and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, this is my goal. Like once I have enough money, I want to have my own studio. I want to be able like to do this right, because when you're creating fashion, you can't create a fashion brand where somebody else suffers. So yes, this is kind of why I'm here, why I want to teach you guys about having a sustainable fashion brand, because I want to keep fashion sustainable. I don't know if you guys can see this, but yes, I am a dork. So anyways, I hope you guys are ready. So if you guys are ready, make sure to type yes, and let's get this show on the road. Oh, Joanna, just love all your energy and the work you do. Thank you so much, Joanna. I'm so glad to have you here as well. So guys, let me know if you guys are ready. If you guys are ready, we'll keep it rolling. All right, I'm just gonna have a sip of my green tea before we get started. Okay, cool. So before we dive right in, what is sustainable fashion? Because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot, especially on the internet and all of that. So let's talk real talk. So sustainable fashion refers to clothing that is designed, manufactured, distributed, and used in ways that are environmentally friendly. And this is the next paragraph is kind of like my own take of it as well. To me, sustainable fashion has to go hand in hand. So your material options will influence your product development and design capacity. Your production time and the logistics of your fabric will also influence your business model, and your business values will influence where and who you're going to manufacture with. So there's a lot of things that you have to think through when creating a sustainable fashion brand. It's not just like creating any brand, you know, where if you're just creating a normal fashion brand, you can work with any manufacturer. You can use any type of fabric. You don't really have to think about those things because, you know, you don't have these, kind of things to think about where it can be limiting, because of course, having a sustainable fashion brand means that you only have access to sustainable fabrics, sustainable trims, manufacturers that are sustainable and ethical as well. So when I say that your material options will influence your product development, it means that when you're designing right now and when you're creative, you're like, ooh, I want to make this. okay, I want to make that, and when you don't know that these fabrics are not available, you think that you have the whole world, like the whole world is your oyster. But then you talk to your manufacturer, you start sourcing fabrics, and you're like, hold on a sec, I cannot actually do this design because the fabric that I want, I cannot do. I don't have access to. And maybe you would be able to make a custom fabric, for instance, but the minimum order quantity of that fabric is 10,000 meters, which wouldn't really be applicable for your business right now. So these are certain things that you're going to be to discover when you have a sustainable brand or you're planning on having a sustainable brand. So it just really pushes you to be more creative and to be adaptable. So oftentimes also, like when I'm designing, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to be super married to this design or fabric yet until I know I can make it fully sustainable. So like I said, there's just so many different details that you have to think through when you are starting a sustainable fashion brand, but we're going to go through that today. So definitely, make sure you write everything down. If you think I'm going a little bit too fast, just let me know in the chat box. You can also screenshot the slides, and there will be a replay as well, so you guys can always go back to it. All right, so what is the goal of a sustainable fashion brand? And I think it's important to first separate the goal for brands and the goal for the consumer, because it's two different things, but they relate to each other. So the purpose of a sustainable fashion brand on a brand perspective is to find a flourishing system that works for your company as a whole without leaving a negative footprint. You don't want to be damaging to the environment. So the ecosystem of your brand should be supporting your team and your community. Whereas for consumers, the goal for a consumer, and I'm sure you guys are here also, advocates of sustainable fashion, for consumers, they want to be mindful of what they're buying, and they want to know which philosophies they're supporting through, purchasing that brand's products. So they want to feel good about their purchases and know that they're purchasing a brand that's not doing something bad to the environment. So those are the two goals that I want that to settle, because it's quite important to understand the two perspectives. Now, let's go further into the business goal. So the business goal is to develop a sustainable fashion business that is the most considerate of humanity and the environment and thinks about the product's life cycle. Now, I definitely want to just kind of remind everybody here, because I know sustainable fashion has become somewhat of a trend. So I want to make sure that you're not just following the crowd. Like, this has to be your passion. If you want your sustainable fashion brand to succeed, it's something that you need to be ultimately passionate about, which is why it's super important to make your sustainable values essential to your business before you join the movement towards a more sustainable fashion future. So let that sink in for a second. And then we'll hop onto the next slide, because this next slide can definitely look a little bit overwhelming. So basically, these are the SDGs, which stand for the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's developed by the United Nations to achieve a better and more sustainable future for everybody on the planet. So they address the global challenges that we face as a collective, which includes poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace and justice. There's 17 of these goals. So it's a lot of goals, but it's important when you are wanting to create a sustainable fashion business to be aware of what these goals are for our planet. So let me know, what goal would you be trying to tackle? Like, you see here all the 17 goals. Obviously, not all of these goals would be applicable to a fashion business, and you're not going to be able to do all of these goals with your business. But I just want you to have a look at the slide and just type in which goal number you would be trying to tackle with your fashion brand. Let me know, guys. And then I'll switch it to the next slide in just a second. I'm not sure if the chat is lagging, but we'll hop back in later. If you, okay, I see people now writing goal 5, 10, and 12. Goal 3, yep, goal 12. Super, super exciting stuff. All right, so now that you guys are
All right, checking here to see if we are all frozen or if it is just Stephanie. Can you all see and hear me? Okay, I see Sarah. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, it's frozen for you. But are you all able to see? Can you see me? Can you hear me? That way we can figure out if it's Stephanie. Okay, Tanula, thank you. All right, so looks like we just lost connection with Stephanie. Okay, so I will reach out to her. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So let's see if I can get her back in the stream. In the meantime, really excited to see, thanks, Vanessa. Okay, thanks, Joy. Really excited to see all of these sustainable development goals that you all are thinking about. Give me just a moment so I can reach out to Stephanie and see if we can get her back in this stream. In the meantime, I would love to know. So one, I'm a big fan of Rihanna, so I'm very excited to see that that's like a crowning achievement for Stephanie. Who would be your most exciting celebrity to see wearing something from your brand? That's just a little something I'm curious about. So think about it, type it in the chat while I try and get Stephanie back online here. I'm just going to mute myself. I see you, Ella. Haley Bieber, Vanessa with BTS. I am appreciative of that. Oh, okay. Maybe now we have. I see her trying to log back in. Ooh, Gigi Hadid. Oh, that's a good one too. All right, Stephanie. There we go. How about now? Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize I was just chatting away, and then I was like,
"Oh no!"
in the comment, what is going on? And then my first screen, everything was still going live, but the main screen was frozen. So let me know if you guys can hear me now. I'm so sorry about that.
I can hear you loud and clear now. There might be a bit of a lag on your video. Actually, I wonder, maybe Stephanie, it might be a good idea if you're still streaming from both different screens. You might just want to exit out of one of them, because StreamYard does take up a lot of internet power. So that might help out. And I'll just pop in when you're asking questions. Our audience, these folks are great. In the meantime, while you were gone, I asked them who would be their dream like celebrity to see wearing something from their fashion brand, because I love Rihanna, and I was excited that you had Rihanna wearing your stuff. So that's what we were covering while you joined us.
Okay.
I'll continue to monitor. I'm going to jump out though, just to kind of give you as much bandwidth as we can.
Okay.
And we'll turn it back over to you, and I'll put your presentation back in too once we get that up.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that.
No problem. This is we're, what is it, a year and a half, 2 years now of virtual meetings. We've all grown our capacity to deal with technical difficulties, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Was it the slide of the SDGs where we froze on, or was it defining goals?
The one right after the SDGs. So folks were furiously sharing. We got a lot of 12s, a lot of goal 3, some 4s and 5s. And then that's about the time that it froze. Yeah.
Okay. I was like just going off, and I'm like, wait, why is everybody so quiet? Yeah, so hopefully it's better now. I turned off the second screen.
Terrific. If you're able to share your screen so we can get your presentation. If not, I think I can.
I can do it.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna hop out then.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I was muted there.
Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna hit present.
Ta-da! Perfect. Back in business.
All right. Hello?
Yeah, we are good. We can see you, we can hear you. Your presentation is up, so you are good to go.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sorry for this little glitch, guys. I guess the internet at the hotel was a little bit spotty, but I was just chatting away and then I realized I lost you guys. But Ashley did tell me about all the goals you guys were typing. So that's awesome. Because yes, if you are considering to start your own sustainable brand, or you want to make your current brand more sustainable, you have to think about the SDGs and how they align with your goals. And that's how you will define what sustainability means in your business. And because you guys are the founders and the people driving this brand, you're the pilot, I want you to have a goal that aligns with your personal ethics and standards so that your brand is authentic and uniquely you. So for example, with my brand, I knew that I wanted to create a brand that, would allow the makers to be in a safe working environment, to be compensated fairly. I didn't want to create a brand where, like the garment workers were not getting paid. And this was an issue early on when I was working with a manufacturer in Bali. And when I saw that was happening, I was like, I need to make my own studio so I can solve this problem. That was my goal. So I want you guys to ask yourself, and you can type this in the chat box as well. What is the goal of your sustainable fashion brand? What is this goal? What are you trying to do with your fashion brand? And this is something that is uniquely you, and that's what's going to set you apart from other brands. So I'll give it for a minute and you can type it. Hopefully you guys can see this screen. So it's very important to define this goal.
and we can see the screen, at least I can, so it's looking good from my end. So we'll just give folks a moment to type their goals
Yeah.
in. My guess is there's a tiny bit of a lag just
Delay.
between
Yeah.
a little bit of a delay. So,
Yeah.
but we can see you and hear you, and we're back on track.
Perfect. And if you don't want to type it in, that's completely fine. We'll move it along, because I want to be mindful of your time as well. So whatever your goal is, I want you guys to make sure that you're thinking about the 3 Ps, which is the people, the planet, and the profit. And this is the triple bottom line of a sustainable fashion business. Normal businesses, they only think about the profit. They may think about the people, but they don't think about the planet. So make sure to think about these 3 Ps, and they're basically the pillars of your sustainable fashion business. And how does this actually apply to you? So to go into more detail, the people are your employees and your community. So how are you giving back to them? And the planet is, of course, our Mother Earth. How are you treating her? How are you offsetting your carbon footprint? Because every business has one. And the profit is, of course, pretty important because you want to ensure profitability in your business. And as you grow, you want to ensure profitability without cutting corners and forgetting your ethics and who you are and why you're here in the first place. And I'll give you an example of that. So, for instance, you have a budget for your brand to make your designs, to sample it, to produce it. And then you realize, okay, I have around 8 designs, but I'm unable to produce all 8 if I'm using an organic cotton and this organic silk, for instance. So then you run to this issue where you might have to trim down the amount of designs that you're launching so that you can use these sustainable fabrics. Or maybe you're like, you know what, I want to do all 8. But yeah, then you're using non organic cotton, you're using maybe satin, things that are not sustainable. And these are going to go back to you as the business owner because you're the decision maker. What would you do in this instance? Are you going to stick to your ethics and your business values, or are you going to be cutting corners? All right. So once you define your goals, obviously, when we're creating a brand story, we need to resonate with your audience. So, what does it mean to resonate with someone? It's to have a particular meaning or importance for someone, and it's to affect or appeal to someone in a personal or emotional way. And as a brand, I find this really important. Brands should emotionally connect with their customers because that's how you're going to build a community, build loyalty, because your products are so much more than that. So before you create any content and before we create your brand story, I want you to assess your audience. So I want you to get to know them. So ask yourself, why are they eco-conscious and what motivates them? If they're millennials, they saw climate change, and millennials are the most eco-conscious of them all. So obviously that, seeing all the negative impact of the damage of the planet while they were growing up, that really motivated them to do better, to make healthier choices for the environment. And then what environmental or societal issues do they care most about? I remember when I was growing up, all the models that I see, they were really skinny. Now you see size inclusivity, and it's really great to see that. And I think, back then you just would never see that in magazines. And, this is obviously a societal issue that I really care about personally. So think about how that is actually in your audience and how they view that. And how does this in return influence their shopping habits and buying decisions? Because if they really care about size inclusivity, for instance, then they want to see size inclusivity on your website. They want to see, diversity, and this will influence their shopping habits. So I want you to really dig deep and think about this in regards to your audience. And what other brands are they already buying that are eco-friendly and eco-conscious? And this doesn't have to be another fashion brand. It can be a food product. It can be another lifestyle brand. You know, what other brands are they already buying and that they're using on a day-to-day basis that are also eco-conscious? And where do they shop for sustainable fashion? Are they shopping online, in online boutiques, or directly from the brand itself? Or maybe they buy it in independent retailers or small boutique shops. So think about that. And this is really important because once you get in the head of your audience, then you can resonate with them and you can develop your brand story and create content for them that speaks to them and communicates directly to them. So you also want to think about what blogs, what influencers, what magazines and podcasts that they follow and look up to, because later on when you are creating content, you can be working with these influencers, you can collaborate with these blogs, you can try to get on that podcast or get a feature in that magazine so that you're really front and center, you know, when it comes to your audience. All right, so your brand story. Like, the thing is, people don't just buy the products you create, people buy the stories that you tell. And I think as a sustainable fashion brand, you have a beautiful story to tell. And founder driven brands are the ones that are doing really well because people nowadays, there's so many, you know, brands, they kind of want to know what your story is, you know, what really motivated you to start the brand. And you know, it's definitely a little bit scary when you're like, oh, should I put my face with my brand? Should I tell my story? Is my story special? Or, you know, we go through a million and one fears. But yes, you are special and your brand is unique because it's you. So, who is behind the brand? Why did you start this brand? What are you passionate about when it comes to sustainable fashion? And it's really important also to talk about the problem that your brand is trying to solve. So, what is that problem? Is it a fit problem? You know, maybe you discovered you couldn't find these types of leggings, or what is it exactly? And what is the solution to this problem? And how do you do it? Is there a specific way that you're solving the solution? Maybe you're using some kind of specific fabric, or, you know, what is that specifically? And most importantly, because this brand story is going to be read by your customers, what does it mean to them? You know, why should they care about this? And then lastly, how does their purchase make a positive impact and to whom? Because a lot of people want to feel good when they're purchasing, you know, they want to do good as well. So if you're a sustainable fashion brand and you're working with a nonprofit and you're donating a part of your purchase to them, you know, who is this nonprofit? Don't just say we're donating, you know, be specific, put the links, maybe even do like a story or a highlight about who you're really supporting. So this is really, really important. So make sure to be good and do good like this. So important notes before we go into the next part of the presentation. So you must define your goals. And these goals have to be somewhat personal to you so that they feel, you know, it's going to feel really passionate for you. And remember, people buy into why you do what you do. And most importantly, you have to stay authentic throughout all of this. So don't be, you know, don't be like inauthentic, like don't be vague. Like that's something that I think as a sustainable fashion brand, you have to really steer away from because you don't want to come off as greenwashing. So you have to be absolutely transparent, you know, on your website, show who you're supporting. You know, if you're working with a certain manufacturer, really highlight that, highlight all of the sustainable efforts that you do. So take a moment to write this all down. Take a screenshot if you need. I'm going to just have a little sip of my tea. But I hope you guys are enjoying this presentation. So I can't really see the chat, but let me know what you think in the chat and Ashley will tell me. But I hope I hope that you're really learning a lot today.
So while folks are defining their goals and taking note of these notes that you've given. I do just want to point out some of the things that are coming up in the chat. You know, you asked about the specific goals that people are setting as their own kind of ethical core and what are their values as a company. And inclusivity is a big one that has come up for folks. I just kind of wanted to point out that Helena mentioned, my goal is to help women and other people feel confident with clothing from my brand or products while having these clothes made ethically and sustainably. And Sarah, yeah, so, and yeah, it is. It's really good. And then Sarah has another one that kind of touches on inclusivity, I think, which is really interesting. As a disabled person, normal clothing is a challenge. There's a perception that disabled folks can't be fashionable. And that's a huge lack of functional, and there's a huge lack of functional adaptive clothing. So I like the idea that there could be, you know, a sustainable clothing brand that highlights that specific type of inclusivity where, you know, accessibility or access to stylish fashion trends might not actually be available to everyone. So if you have the ability to make that a part of your brand, then, you know, so much the better.
I love that. I wish I could see the chat.
But you'll be able to see, just as a note for you, well, and also for everyone in the replay, and on the YouTube stream, you'll be able to see the chat when you go through the replay. So you will be able to see it there, just so you know.
Okay, sounds good. And I think at the end of the presentation, when we switch to the live Q&A, I'll turn the presentation off so I can see the questions.
Great.
Perfect. Let me know if I should keep going.
Yeah, I think.
Am I back?
Ready? Yeah, you are.
Okay, perfect. So hope you guys took all of these notes down before we dive into the next part of the presentation, which is sustainable fabrics and trims. So there's a lot of different options out there. I mean, unfortunately, not as many as the non-sustainable counterparts, but let's begin. So I guess to simplify today, before we actually talk about sustainable fabrics, I just want to highlight this because when you're using sustainable fabrics or eco-friendly fabrics, you must not use non-toxic dyes and you have to use non-toxic dyes and non-toxic inks, because if you're dyeing the fabric and they're toxic, they're really chemical dyes, they're not certified dyes, then at the end, your fabric is not sustainable. So absolutely think about the process that the fabric goes through as well when you purchase the fabrics. So it just doesn't end there. You know, when you purchase a sustainable fabric, it doesn't mean that, okay, that's it, that's sustainable. So let's talk about the three categories. So there is natural, which is derived from plants or animals. And then there's processed natural fibers, which are semi-synthetics. And then there's also recycled synthetics. And usually sustainable fabrics, they have to be biodegradable, or they have to be organically farmed or recycled or natural and harvested in a fair way. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk about these categories, and you guys are more than welcome to take those screenshots again so that you can look at the fabric names and the brands and also like do your research, because if we're talking about this in depth, we will be here for hours. So I'm going to try my best to kind of cram everything in. So I really do highly suggest to just take screenshots of the next few slides. Okay, so the first is natural fabrics, which is from Mama Earth. And like I said, they're derived from plants or animals. So these would be organic or recycled cotton, organic linen, organic hemp. From animals, they would be wools such as sheep wool, merino wool, alpaca wool, cashmere, and silk. And silk has pea silk, vegan silk, and silk can be a little bit questionable because when it comes to animal derived natural fabrics, it's really important to note how the animals are treated. And notice how I wrote organic in most of the fabrics on the left, because not all materials that are natural are sustainable. So that's kind of a common misconception. So always look for the organic versions because they don't use harmful pesticides. And make sure to check the source as well, because when you think like, oh, cotton is like natural, but yes, like normal cotton uses so much water, like the way that they harvest it. So you have to use the organic cotton or the recycled cotton option. And the reason why I don't put bamboo here, because even though bamboo is natural, by the time that it does get processed, it uses a lot of chemicals. So it's not really like a sustainable fabric unless it's by lensing, which we will discuss in the next slide. So make sure to take a screenshot of this so that you can do more research in the different types of fabrics that are natural and sustainable. So to go further, the second category is semi-synthetic. This is supposed to actually be a picture of how they process tensile fabric. I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but basically semi-synthetic fabrics, they are cellulose-generated fibers. So they are from wood pulp, or they can be from cotton waste and linters from cotton fabric manufacturers. So they basically use this and then they create like a different reaction to it. So there is a chemical process, but typically when it comes to semi-synthetic fabrics that are sustainable, it is a closed loop process, meaning that that chemical is being used over and over again in the manufacturing facility. So they're not being disposed of. So hence why it's called closed loop. So a few of the companies that do this in a sustainable way is Lenzing, which is an Austrian company, and they develop tensile lyocell. So when you see tensile or lyocell, it's basically the same thing. So tensile is from Lenzing. It's derived from certified wood pulp, renewable energy. So it's definitely sustainable, but of course not as sustainable as a natural fabric. But the cool thing about tensile is that it can be used in different types of fabrics because they mix it to create different fabric variations. So you can have knit fabric, woven fabric, and it's perfect for apparel, all different types of apparel, actually. People even use it for homewares and cars and like all of those things. And another one of my favorites, my personal favorite, which I use a lot for my brand, is EcoVero. So EcoVero is also by Lenzing, and it's similar to Tencel, but to me, like it's a little less silky than Tencel. So I use it a lot for intimates and like bodysuits and all of that. But again, EcoVero can also be mixed with other types. So sometimes like an EcoVero fabric can feel a little bit more silky and can be used for shirts and all of that. So it just really depends where you end up buying it from the supplier, because the supplier would basically work with Lenzing to create it in different types of materials. And then you also have Lenzing Modal, which is more of like a stretchy type of Lenzing. So that's why all of these are trademarked, because it is from this one company in Austria. And then you also have bamboo lyocell. And if you remember what I just discussed earlier about bamboo not being sustainable, well, once it does synthesize in a sustainable closed loop way, you have bamboo lyocell, which is then the sustainable version. And it kind of sucks because bamboo is a very like sustainable natural plant, because it doesn't really need much water to grow. Like it's very self-sustaining, but it really depends on how it's processed after. That is going to dictate whether or not it's sustainable. So what you want to look out for is bamboo lyocell. And if you're doing leather, Peanut does fruit leather, which is really cool. I've never personally used them. But yeah, they do all different types of leather made out of fruit. So if any of you guys are here, interested in doing that, definitely check out Peanut.
very curious
And
about this, as I used to snack on fruit leather. My guess is it's something a little bit different. Before you go you go to the next point, Steph, we have a couple of questions related to this information that you're sharing, specifically around Tencel. So you mentioned that it's sourced, so it's a trademark, I'm guessing, from a particular company in Austria. Is that the only place that you can get it from, or how do you go about sourcing that? That's a question from Marag.
Ah, so if you can basically contact them directly, Lensing
Mm,
AG. Obviously, like they don't work directly with like consumers, which consumers I mean like brand owners, where the people buying the fabric, but they will be
mm,
able to direct you to maybe some stores that are in your vicinity. So they'll be able to tell you because everything that they do is verifiable. So that's the cool thing about working with
it's great to
lensing,
know.
and they're basically the number one in semi-synthetic sustainable fabrics. And I'll go into
Cool.
how to source sustainably as well in the next few slides.
Excellent. And then Sarah is asking if you've ever worked with bast bamboo, and whether you have thoughts or knowledge on that.
On what bamboo? Sorry.
Bast, BAST.
Bass bamboo. To be completely honest, no. I've worked with
Mm,
bamboo, but not bass bamboo. But yes, there are so many different types of sustainable fabrics. And again, this is really going to depend like in the region that you're working in. So for
right.
me, like I source a lot of suppliers locally. And the reason for that being is because I don't want the fabric to be traveling like from across the world.
Right,
So
right.
designing stuff, I'm like, hey, what do I have, in Bali or like maybe in greater Indonesia? And that's kind of
Mhm.
the stuff that I will use because I don't want to be like, okay, I'll ship that fabric from here to there. And that's, not as sustainable.
Right.
So, obviously in Indo, they don't have bast bamboo. We have just like normal bamboo. So yeah, personally, I haven't used that, but of course, like if that's something that you have access to, then maybe just play around and experiment with
Explore.
it and do more research on what it is.
Cool. That's all for now. I'll hop back off.
Ooh, all right, perfect. So the last category is recycled synthetic. So these are basically produced using recycled materials such as plastic bottles, fishing nets, and marine waste. And unfortunately, this is not a biodegradable fabric, but the cool thing is at least like all of this waste is not ending up in our landfill. So these companies basically take it from the landfill and then they repurpose it into these recycled yarns and recycled fabrics. And these are perfect materials for swimwear and activewear and basically anything that's high performing. And even though it's not like 100% biodegradable, it is definitely the sustainable option compared to normal nylon and normal polyester. So a few of my favorites, or what I would recommend, is EcoNail regenerated nylon. They are by a company called Aquafil. So they actually make it into yarn called EcoNail. And then some companies actually purchase the yarn like Carvico Vita, and then they'll like make it into different types of fabrics. So Carvico Vita uses elastane and EcoNail to produce Carvico Vita fabric, which to me is one of the best swimwear fabrics, and they're an Italian company. It's very like compressed, like it has a high compression, it has beautiful colors, and it's probably the leading swimwear fabric as of now. And then you also have Reprieve, which is a company I believe that's based in America, I think in somewhere near New York or something like that. I use them a lot for myself and for my brands that I work with, and they're also a recycled polyester fabric. So they don't just do swimwear or activewear fabrics. They can make Reprieve into different types of fabrics. So even like windbreaker fabric or like shirt fabric and all of that. So it's really cool that they can repurpose it for many different things. And then a company in Portugal called Sequel is similar to Econil, meaning that they actually reuse these materials and create it into yarn, and then this yarn can then be spun and woven into other types of materials. And last but not least, you have recycled nylon, and this is basically the better version than normal nylon. So you guys can definitely write these brands down and like do more research, go on their websites and like check them out, find their contact details. And that's what I would suggest to do to kind of understand more what these fabrics are and how they're available to you. Now, don't forget about your trims as well, because when you're making a sustainable fashion brand, it's not just about the fabrics, it's also about your trims. So your trims can be your threads, your buttons, your lining, your beading, you know, hopefully you're not doing too much beading because there's not that many sustainable beads, your zippers, you know, motifs, your patches and all of that, and also your packaging. So don't forget about that. Like, don't have a sustainable brand and then like package it in like plastic packaging. I know you guys won't do that, but I just feel like saying that again as a reminder. So don't forget about your trims. Like, what trims do you need for your clothing? Like, make a list and then find their sustainable counterparts. And how do you do that? So how do you source? How do you find these sustainable fabrics and sustainable trims? So like I mentioned earlier, research online. Now that you know all the brands, all the fabrics that I mentioned, go on their websites. You know, do a Google search and find their websites, read their About Us, get their contact pages, send them an email and ask them, hey, like, where can I buy this fabric? And, you know, ask them how you can have access to this fabric. Like I said, a lot of the bigger companies, they won't sell to you personally, but they will direct you to like stores that are in your area, you know, and then you would contact that store. So it's definitely a little bit more of a research. And then you can also always hop on Instagram, you know, Carvico and Reprieve, they're on Instagram. You can follow them, like contact them there if you need. You know, just be like, hey, I have this business, this is my brand. Like, make sure when you're reaching out though, like, don't just be like, hi, can you tell me more? Like, do a proper introduction, write them a proper email so that they know that you are professional and you're serious. And then last but not least, also hop in Facebook groups. There's a ton of Facebook groups, research maybe a sustainable fabric Facebook group. And then go in there. Some of the suppliers are in there, and then you can do a post like, hey, I'm looking for this type of fruit leather or whatnot, and then see who responds to you. So besides researching, once you get the contacts for the suppliers or the manufacturers, hopefully they are in your area. I mean, I really highly recommend like keep them as close as possible to you. But of course, like that can be a little bit impossible maybe with manufacturers, or, you know, depending on where you live. If you live somewhere really remote, obviously this is not possible. But if you can keep it close to you can keep it local, get to know them and visit their operations, see how they do things. And like, you know, you want to just check everything. And if this is not possible because maybe COVID or travel restrictions, then Skype them, get on a Zoom, you know, like get a face-to-face. And then last but not least, if they're claiming that this, you know, material is this and that, ask for the certifications, because, you know, you want to be able to verify your materials and the origin of the material. Now, of course, this might be a little bit tough if you're going through like a fabric supplier, because a fabric supplier, they would work with the fabric mill, and the fabric mill will take the raw material from the farmers, or, you know, from the source. So usually there's already like a few levels until like the fabric goes to you. So in that case, you would have to ask the fabric supplier and be like, hey, do you have a certification if you claim that this is got certified organic cotton or whatnot? And then usually they would be able to give you that certification so you can check that. But of course, if you go straight to the source, that's the best way, because then you'll see firsthand how things are really, you know, like. So speaking of, oh, sorry about that. So speaking of certifications, What to look out for. So textile standards, they ensure that the textile production uses environmentally friendly, sustainable processes and socially responsible working conditions. So these certifications guarantee that the fabric manufacturing has the least impact on the people, the environment, and the animals in the negative way. Like they make sure that, everything is done the right way and they're using the resources responsibly. So some of the certifications that you can look out for is GOTS certified, which they use that in a lot of silks and a lot of cottons. So that's one of my top certifications that I look out for. And then if it is cotton related, another certification is OCS, which is Organic Cotton Standard. And then remember when I told you guys about the dyes and the inks? So to certify whether or not like it's an sustainable dye or a sustainable ink, there's a company called Ocotex 100 that does all of these certifications to make sure that there's not harmful chemicals in the inks and the dyes and all of that. It's also applicable for sustainable trims. So if you're looking for sustainable trims, look out for Ocotex 100. And yeah, there's a few more like USDA certified organic, Forest Stewardship Council. There's Blue Sign, Better Cotton Standard, and then Lensing, that company that I mentioned earlier, they also have their own certification, which can be verified through their e-branding portal. So once you purchase fabrics from them, you can kind of register in their portal and make sure that everything is verified. So make sure to take a screenshot of this slide too if you guys need, so you can kind of like double check everything as you are sourcing your fabrics and your trims. Okay, guys, I wonder how we're doing with time. I just want to be mindful of your time. So these are basically the important questions that you need to ask yourself when you are sourcing your sustainable fabrics and your trims. You want to think about these things. So how are the textiles made? And sometimes you might not know this because you're buying it from the supplier. So it's not like you're going directly to where the cotton is harvested, where they're, getting the wood pulp from and all of that. But like I said, if you're buying from reputable companies like Lensing, you know where they're getting it from because all of this is certified from the start. And what materials and trims are you using? So what are the sustainable materials that you're going to be incorporating in your collection? What type of trims are you going to be using? Recycled plastic trims, cotton threads? Like think about those things and make a list. And will there be any certifications that are applicable to those materials and trims? So obviously, like I said, if you're buying from the manufacturers, sometimes you have to ask for the certifications and all of that. They don't actually like give it to you, so you might want to just verify that with them. And then when you are looking at your material, if you're buying, let's say, a nylon, is it recycled? You want to make sure that if it's a synthetic fabric, that it is a recycled or a regenerated fabric. And a few, we didn't really discuss this, but there's also ways that you can use like dead stock material. When I started my brand, This Is a Love Song, I actually use vintage material. And I basically collected a bunch of vintage material from when I was traveling all over the world, and I cut them into pockets and put them like on the t-shirt. And so all these organic cotton t-shirts had its own like pocket and they were all different. And I didn't know that this was called upcycling back then. So that's what it is when you kind of repurpose material to use it in a different design. So
You're a
maybe
trendsetter.
that's what you're yeah. So yeah, it's a cool, like I see it now a lot. Like I've seen like people starting brands where they take like a vintage shirt and then they'll make it into like a blazer and a skirt. Like that's upcycling, which is cool because you're repurposing something that's existing. So that's something that you might want to check out as well. And then don't forget about the packaging because the packaging is super important. You don't want to like be using you don't want to be using polyester threads and plastic packaging and all of that. Make sure that your packaging is also sustainable. And this is something that you might want to think about later. But if you have an office, if once you're running your team, like how are you saving energy? Like these are things that you want to think about as well. Maybe for now, it's not really like an issue if you're working from home, like you're kind of saving energy because your office is your home and that. But once you start getting bigger and bigger, you want to really think about how your business impacts that aspect as well. Now, if you are dyeing your material, which in some cases you might have to, because a lot of the material, they come in like a white or like an off-white color. So you might be dyeing, you might be printing and all of that. You can ask your dye house or your printers how they're managing their wastewater and how like the pollutants are being managed and disposed, because this could be something that you want to highlight in your website, that you are aware of that. And then if there are any damages, which of course, running a business, you're going to be offsetting, you're going to be emitting CO2. That's normal. Nobody is perfect. How are you going to offset these damages? So what are you going to do? Are you going to plant some trees? How are you going to offset any damages that occur in the whole production process and even the process of shipping the items to your customers? So there's a lot to think about, guys. I hope you guys are doing okay, and I'm not just like going through this really, really fast. So do let me know. Take a screenshot of this slide too if you need, so you can really think about it after this presentation, because these are important questions to think about.
And also feel free if you have any of your own questions that you want to bring up. Just for the sake of time, it might be easier if you all go ahead and type those into the chat now. And if there are any questions, I can bring them up with Stephanie.
Yeah. So we'll have the Q&A at the end. But if you guys want to type in your questions, you can. So I'll just go through this last bit as fast as I can, because I know we're running a little bit behind and I want to be mindful of your time. So just remember this, that perfection does not exist, and your fashion brand cannot solve every problem that the fashion industry has. So the most important thing that I keep saying over and over again is that you need to stay authentic and do what aligns with you. And whatever you do, keep your customers in the loop. If you're planting 1,000 trees, tell your customers that you're planting 1,000 trees, and that was because they helped do that, because they've been purchasing your brand. And show them how you do it, like show pictures, show videos, don't be vague. And it's really important, especially in the sustainable fashion space, is to constantly evolve and to try to do better, because this space is a fast moving space. There's always new things happening, and so you want to be able to evolve and like be in the loop of things. So continue to keep educating yourself as well as your customers. So I keep going back to the slide before. I didn't mean to do that. So it's basically whatever we discussed today is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's not enough time to be discussing everything in a 60-minute presentation. So yeah, this is literally something that, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. And there's just so much more to measure how sustainable your brand is. So a couple of things that is in a sustainability assessment is how you design. So we didn't discuss that today, but it all starts with sustainable design, and then comes sustainable materials, which we touched on today, but obviously there's a lot more to it as well. You can also assess how sustainable you are through your practice, your business model, your supply chain, and the way that you manage your business, as well as some circular solutions. So all of these things together is how you measure how sustainable your fashion business really is. So I cover all of this inside of my 8-week accelerator program called the SYFB Accelerator Program, which teaches you how to start and scale your fashion business in a sustainable way as well. So I see a few of my students are actually here too. So hello. And yeah, inside what you will learn in this course of 8 weeks is We're going to first talk about branding and strategy, because this is obviously how we set the tone of your brand, and it's really important. And by the way, I am going to give a free brand guide, so stick around to the very end of this presentation. Don't fall off yet. So the branding is really important. And, we talked a little bit about brand story today, but we really dive into how to create a brand that emotionally connects with your customers. And then week 2, we talk about company setup, because this is really important. We go through all of this, including trademarking. And week 3, we cover product development and designing. And obviously, you don't really have to know how to sew because I don't either, but it's important to understand like what is required when you are working with manufacturers. And don't worry, you don't need to have like design experience or be an amazing fashion designer. That's why we have week 3, and I will teach you how to do this. And inside week 4, we also talk about sourcing materials and trims. So we discussed that today, but in week 4, we really, really dive into how to do this, and you'll be fully equipped to find whatever you need for your brand. And then in week 5, once you know how to source, you start reaching out to manufacturers to start your sampling and your production. And here's where I will teach you my system so that you can do this efficiently, so that you're not making multiple samples and blowing your budget just in the sampling phase. So this is a really important week. And in week 6, we obviously have to cover the numbers and crunch the numbers. So we dive into the costings and logistics aspects. So you're going to be able to have a profitable business. We're going to talk about your margins, how to price your products, how to basically keep costs down, and all of that fun stuff. And then we also touch on selling, because obviously this is important. That's how you're going to create cash flow for your business and survive. And there's different sales strategies that I will uncover in week 7. So that will include wholesale and like getting your brand all over the world. And lastly, we end it with marketing strategies. And this is probably the most jam-packed module, because I basically talk about Facebook funnels, how to set up your email marketing, how to do your social media marketing, how to reach out to stylists and get your stuff in magazines. And I think I know a thing or two about that, especially with the whole Rihanna situation. So if you want to learn more about like how to get your stuff on celebrities and like in magazines, it's all covered in the marketing module, which is in week 8, and it's a super jam-packed module. So yes, that's the Start Your Fashion Business Accelerator program. And I guess it will get you from idea to these beautiful images. So these images are not loading, but maybe you guys can go on Instagram now and check out Petite Femme Label, because then you'll see that, the SOFB Accelerator program will get you from idea to that. And it's an amazing label by my student, Annie. She's has created a label for petite women. And I wish that these photos would actually load, but they can't. So do me a favor, go to her Instagram and maybe even follow her, because, us sustainable fashion entrepreneurs, we need to support each other. So to move things along, here's some of what our students are saying so far. So Sade said, it's an amazing course. And then Prabneet said that she found the bonus presentation video very helpful. Laura, who is the founder of Manis Bali, which is a brand that is for bedding, and she creates plant dye bedding, which is really good for your skin. She says, I highly recommend the course to anyone who wants to start their own fashion brand. Stephanie covers in the course everything you need to know to start your own brand and provides super helpful templates. And you can ask the SYFB community and Stephanie for feedback, which is amazing. So that's what Laura said about the course. And here's a few more things that people are saying as well. So thank you, Stephanie, for creating a course packed with practical strategies that actually work. I finally completed the course 2 weeks ago, and I have to say it is worth every cent and more. I have much more confidence now than when I first started, and that alone is priceless. And I just love hearing that, because my goal is to be able to help as many fashion entrepreneurs as possible in their fashion business. And this photo on the left isn't loading, but that's basically Emily. She also has an amazing brand, which you guys should follow, called Swim by M. And she was basically saying this in our private Facebook group, that she won a pitch competition and she managed to win $10,000 for her business because the course helped her win this competition, which was so amazing. I was so excited when I heard that, because I remember she was telling me that she was entering this competition in her university, and she won it. So that was a really, really cool thing to hear. So what do you get besides me, the awesome mentor? If you do decide to join the program today, you'll get a step-by-step video training that's over 20 hours. And yep, it's a lot, but you do have lifetime access to this. So it's not like you have to just race through it. You know, it will be like your fashion encyclopedia that you can kind of go back to every time you need. And this is a course that's continuously updated. So you will also have access to any new content that I upload. And I upload new content like every 2 weeks. So there you have it. And you also get access to a private entrepreneur group where, you know, you can share your ideas, you can put your work in there. I will review it. If you have any questions, you can ask me or ask your peers. It's a very supportive group. So you'll get access to that immediately if you join today. And every 2 weeks, we also do live Q&A calls, and they're about 60 minutes long, but I love to over deliver. So sometimes we're in there for like 80 minutes, 90 minutes. So this is a live Q&A call where you can ask me anything. And on top of that, you also get tech packs, agreements, business templates, planners, financial planners, like all the things that you need to run your business right away. You'll even get done for you scripts. So when you're reaching out to influencers or stores, it's already there. You just have to plug your brand name and, you know, make sure all of that is customized before you send it out. And most of the modules come with workbooks that you can go through. So, you know, we really make sure that you're staying on track, and that you, at the end of it, you will have a fashion brand that is profitable and sustainable. So it does also come with a 14-day money-back guarantee. And just to remind you guys, on Teachable, it says 30-day money-back guarantee, but that's kind of a technical issue there. So it is a 14-day money-back guarantee from the date that you purchase the course. So before we wrap up, I want to also give you guys a special discount code for $100 off the SYFB Accelerator program. And you have about 2 weeks to decide whether or not you want to join this program. That code will be valid for the next 2 weeks only. And if you want that free brand guide template, you see the barcode on the bottom right-hand corner. You can scan that right now, and then you can claim your free brand guide template. So that is the bonus, because I want to thank you guys so much for sticking around throughout this presentation. So I will leave this here for like a little minute so you guys can pull your phone, scan it in to claim your free brand guide. And yeah, make sure to also note the discount code as well, so that you can claim $100 off the course, because the course will then cost $897 instead of $997 if you use the code. And like I said, you will have lifetime access to this. So, you know, you don't have to like start right away. You don't have to finish it in 8 weeks. You know, if you're busy with school, with work, whatnot, like you really don't have to rush through it. It's going to be your fashion business encyclopedia, and you can always go back to it every time you need a refresh. And you know, it's there in the Teachable platform. So I have one more bonus for you guys. If you do end up signing up in the next 24 hours, I will give you the VIP list of ethical manufacturers and suppliers, which is going to be super helpful when you're looking for fabrics, you're looking for trims, you're looking for factories all over the world that you want to work with to make this brand a reality. So this is a VIP list that I will be giving out to you if you do sign up in the next 24 hours. And like I said, this is a global list. So there's manufacturers from North America, Canada, North America, sorry, I guess that's the same region, Europe, Asia, Australia. So it's basically a culmination of people or contacts that I've known for the past 6 to 8 years. So this is definitely going to be valuable for you if you want to start your fashion brand. Okay, guys. So before we end this presentation, I want to be friends with you guys. So make sure to follow me at Start Your Fashion Business. I'm going to pull up my phone now. So if you haven't followed me, follow me at Start Your Fashion Business. I will follow you back. If you do that now or later, I will definitely be going through my Instagram. You can always DM me as well. If you have any questions about the program, we can connect there at Start Your Fashion Business. So that's everything for today. Thank you so much for listening and going through with me, although we've experienced some kind of technical glitch. So I hope you guys learned a lot today, and I hope to see some of you guys inside of the program. So with that being said, it's time for our live Q&A. Thank you guys so much for listening in.
Thank you, Stephanie. I've loved watching the sun come up behind you as we've been getting further into the presentation. So there are a few questions that have come in just as you've been speaking. And one in particular that I'm curious about. So you have experience in this space in lots of different areas, but you are specifically familiar with Bali. Marag is asking if you recommend manufacturing in Bali, and what would be the process to find the right factory or manufacturer. And I would love to hear you speak about that, just because I think there are some ways that folks in different places can learn, even if they're not in Bali, but going through the same process somewhere else.
Yeah, Bali is definitely a great place to start. There's a ton of good manufacturers in Bali that have been producing garments for 30 years, So if you're producing dresses, swimwear, and activewear, if that's what you're making, then I definitely think Bali is a good place for you to look for manufacturers. But Bali is not good for winter clothing, because it's not really a place where they're making like jackets and stuff like that. So if that's what you're making, then it's probably better to look for that in North America. Now, some manufacturers in Bali that I recommend is for swimwear, there's Bali Swim. There's also King Trading. They do a lot of bigger production. They produce for many brands, even like non-sustainable ones, such as Topshop. So they're quite big. So maybe their MOQ is a little bit high. If you want, you can always connect with my manufacturing studio called Tile Studio. Our MOQ is a little bit lower, and we do specialize in sustainable fabrics as well. But if you just Google Bali clothing manufacturers, you'll see a whole bunch of them. And just go to their Google reviews to see like what people are saying. That's what I suggest. But basically, when you are working with a manufacturer, or you're planning on working with a manufacturer, you have to have your designs ready, and they will ask you for your tech pack, which is like a technical document that is going to have like a spec sheet with the measurement of your designs and like a picture of this specific design. It's a document that has all the information about that design, including the colors, the fabrics, and all of that. So make sure that you have this tech pack, because they will ask you for it. But without it, you're kind of not going to be moving forward much. So that's something that I suggest you have. And then, for the time being, if you just want to reach out to kind of get their info packets and all of that, that's completely fine. But just know you cannot move into sampling without that tech pack.
So that's kind of a bit of basic like preparation work that would be helpful for you to have as you're going into these conversations so that it can be more productive when you actually get in touch with those folks?
Yeah, and we actually cover tech packs like inside the course. So that's like one of the things that we will make sure that you will be ready to be able to work with these manufacturers, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, without the tech pack, it's like you're kind of asking them, hey, you can't just send pictures from the internet, like, oh,
Right,
can you make
right.
this? So they really do require that. And if you are for some reason coming across a manufacturer that says that, oh no, you don't need a tech pack, trust me, run the other way, because you will have issues later with production. And like I had a client
That's a
reach out.
good point.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, I was working with a manufacturer in India. I didn't need it. They told me I didn't need a tech pack, and then after I received my production, they were all wrong, because this document will have all of the measurements. So,
Right, right.
it makes your production, um, going to be correct. Because if you don't have that, and then something comes and like the sleeves are too long, and you don't have something where you can go back to, where you're like, hey, this sleeve is supposed to be this many inches long, but you made this production like that.
Then you're just
So
kind of
that,
out of luck.
yeah, so that's what a tech pack is for. And it's called a technical packet. And it's the most important document that you need
Right.
for sampling and production.
Which is true sort of across fields, right? For engineering, if you're building things, that it's those
Yeah,
specifications are important to have. It, like you said, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where something is all wrong and you have nothing to point back to say, "Hey, we
yeah.
agreed."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you won't build a house without a plan, right? So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
clothing.
So Shamira is asking, do you also cover fitting sessions and adjustments for the designs in the course? And related to that,
Yeah,
Tinwola has asked about whether it's the focus is only on sustainable fashion brands, but I'm it sounds to me like what what you cover in the course, the topics that you're discussing are kind of relevant for the entire um,
yeah,
production process from soup to nuts, beginning
yeah.
to final product.
Yeah, that's correct. It's applicable to even an accessories line, whether you want to make it sustainable or non-sustainable. Obviously, like I love it when you can create a sustainable fashion brand, but sometimes that's not going to be your niche or your goal, and that's fine. So you can obviously apply everything in the course to both non-sustainable and sustainable fashion brands. So hopefully that answers that question. What was the other question again about the fittings, right?
Fitting, yeah,
So
whether you cover fitting sessions and adjustments.
yeah, so we do cover that. So like in week 5 about working with manufacturers in your sampling and your production process, we go over how to like actually communicate with them so that you're on the same
Mm,
page. I kind of show you the systems that you need to put in place, which are systems that I use in my business every day with my clients. And that's how, we ensure that all the samples are correct. So I will basically teach you how to do that and to be able
right.
to like implement the system in your business, because you definitely want to keep things super organized, and there's a way to minimize the errors in the
Space
sampling.
for
And
error, yeah.
that will just save you so much time and so much money. So yes,
Well,
absolutely, that will be covered.
I love that, and I can definitely say it no sometimes, no matter how clear you are on what it is that you're hoping to create, seeing somebody else's kind of template for how they've gone through this process from beginning to end can be a really effective way, no matter what the business is, can be a really effective way to keep yourself organized, to make
Yeah,
sure that you're kind of acknowledging, surfacing blind spots that you might have. It's such a huge endeavor to undertake that
yeah,
why not have somebody else who's gone through this process and done it successfully kind of help give you a roadmap so you can check what you're
yeah,
doing against that, right?
yeah.
um,
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you're like doing this at the beginning and you're like kind of the solopreneur, you're like, oh, I got so
yeah,
do like what should I do? Like you kind of need somebody to lean on, like you need like your peers, like a support group. So it's, yeah, you're gonna get that in the program as well. And like I'm there to hold your hand. I'm there to make sure that you will have your fashion brand at the end of it.
Love that. And the community makes all the difference, as does the mentorship. So thanks for explaining how that's integrated into the course that you offered. Audience, want to thank you all for being here, and also invite you to join me in thanking Stephanie for being a soldier and persisting through technical difficulties. Like we mentioned at the beginning of the session, there will be a replay available, so you'll have access to all of the information that Stephanie shared today. We'll send that to you via email. You'll also have access to that discount code if you use the link that's on top of the pinned to the top of this YouTube page. You won't need the code. It'll be applied automatically. Or if you go through Stephanie's page, you've got the discount code for her there. Teachable 100 is that code. So yeah, have really enjoyed having you all today. I'm very excited to see all of the amazing sustainable fashion brands that come out of this course and Stephanie's mentorship, and really hoping that you all get your version of Rihanna wearing your fashion pieces, whether it's BTS or Gigi Hadid or whoever it is. So thank you all for joining us. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here, for waking up early. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and that we will see you again in the future.
Yes. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you soon.
Take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.